from our Scottish coordination group that we work with. So we're just going to play you a short video, and then I'm handing over to Tamsin Holland-Brown, who's our co-clinical lead on the programme. And thanks again for joining.
It's energizing,
life-changing,
inspiring. Definitely go for it.
On the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme, you can do almost anything you want to do that will help transform patient care.
It gave me an amazing support network. It gave me access to advisors, to experts, to financial advice, to branding. You know, it covers everything.
Finding your tribe is so important. And feeling that sense of belonging is really missing when you're an entrepreneur. You can feel really lonely.
Being in a space with a group of people that think in the same way as I do about the NHS was really inspiring.
Rethink entrepreneurship, especially clinical entrepreneurship. By definition, if you work in the NHS, you are an innovator.
Our entrepreneurs are amazing. It gives you the commercial skills, knowledge and experience to help you bring a startup mindset to the challenges we face in healthcare.
You absolutely won't regret it. So far for me, it's been an absolutely amazing journey.
Networking,
Self-development,
opportunity, inspiring,
And most of all, challenging, but in a good way.
100%, don't delay, apply today.
Thanks, Polly. Thank you so much to all of you for joining. My name is Tamsin Holland-Brown. I am the co-clinical lead for the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Programme. And we are really excited because we are opening up to the next cohort and applications are opening in October. And we have this wonderful collaboration to support Scottish entrepreneurs. And the way that it's set up is that the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme is able to be UK-wide, but we appreciate and have this wonderful collaboration with the Scottish Coordination Group so that Scottish entrepreneurs additionally have that access to innovation and entrepreneurship in that wider network within Scotland, and we will hear from them later. They have some wonderful slides just to run you through what the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme is about. So Emily, that'd be lovely. Thank you to share. Thanks, Emily. The next slide would be lovely. So the programme is actually developed and run by Anglia Ruskin University, who host it. It started in 2016 with Polly, who you heard from at the beginning, on the operational side, and Professor Tony Young, who developed it because he had that conversation with entrepreneurs who were leaving the health service in order to set up their new ideas to help patient care. And he managed to get funding in order to support people for free to join the programme who get through the application process, so that they were able to have their innovations supported within the NHS, and then for that to hit NHS patients first. And so supporting people in the health service has been a very successful part of what this programme's offered. We have been able to show in the data that we can support and lift some of those barriers, but also that some people, in fact, it's 333 different clinicians have reported either returning or deciding not to leave because they were able to do both, continue their NHS journey alongside their innovation journey. And of course, the aim is there's no intellectual property taken. There is only support there for the people who are on the programme to develop their innovations for the benefit of patients or the wider NHS, the processes. And we appreciate that people can be entrepreneurs, outwardly thinking, wanting to scale, or intrapreneurs, doing something, getting an idea out within their hospital or their ecosystem. And what the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme will do is aim to develop skills and knowledge through education days, and also the mentors and the enormous benefit of the network. And you will hear from a couple of three of the clinical entrepreneurs later on. And the interesting thing is there is a wider benefit to growth throughout the UK, because there are so many businesses that are set up, and also that means that their employment is also created. Interestingly, the clinical entrepreneurs have raised a huge amount of money, very near to £1 billion in funding to get their collectively to get their innovations off the ground, and that represents quite a significant portion of the life science sector money. So the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme is able to support people to make a big contribution to the life science sector and to research and to the future of healthcare. Thanks, Emily. Next slide would be lovely. It started off as a programme that was only for doctors, has become much richer for its ability now to have grown due to the success of the programme, to be able to include much wider healthcare, all NHS staff. And there's also been development this year where we've been able to include patients, which was the final missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle, really. And to get those with lived experience. And we've got quite mature innovations that have come from patient entrepreneurs who've come into the mix this year, and also been developing charity partnerships, particularly with the Alzheimer's Society and with Crisis Homeless Charity, to support people who have who come through those charities. And again, it's people with lived experience who get to be alongside people who are innovating in this area, and actually a lot of partnerships are created. We do see people who start on their innovation journey and find their colleagues or sometimes their co-founders on the journey. So it's very common to have support within the network for people find that's very helpful. So as the programme has been successful and given more money, its own funding, it means that we're able to support larger cohorts of people. And last year we took on just over 200, was it, Polly? Clinical entrepreneurs in total. And so the Scottish cohort is a smaller cohort, but it sits within that wider network. Thank you, Emily. Next slide would be lovely. Shall we play this to hear from the clinical entrepreneurs? Are you all right set up to do that, Emily?
Sorry, I just have to enable sound. It'll be just 1 second.
Oh, perfect. So again, it's a small clip to explain. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Emily, is it the one we've already seen?
Yes, I think that's the one we've already seen. Sorry, Tamsin. I'll keep going.
Sorry, that's fine. So wonderfully, the programme lasts 1 year, and it's not as you're not kind of spoon-fed. It's got it allows that flexibility. We understand that people have those prior commitments that they have to are also juggling their NHS job and also innovation. And so we really like to support people to be able to access it flexibly. It consists of around 8 to 9 pit stops. They're called pit stops. They're sort of education and networking events that enable people to come to different venues where we're able to support people to learn specific skills. And that includes access to funding, access to industry, thinking about your logo, your social media, thinking about what you would need to set up with intellectual property, building a team. And also there is this understanding that it's not just the journey of your innovation, but that there's also a personal journey involved. And so we encourage you to kind of reflect on that and to learn as you're developing. And so there's also mentoring, which we have access to extraordinary mentors with access to people within government and also quite high up in the NHS England, as well as very strong industry partners. People actually give up their time, and we've had people's mentors becoming really involved for the long term. There's a very strict agreement between mentors and their clinical entrepreneurs, so that there's clear boundaries. We understand that mentors sometimes end up on boards for clinical entrepreneurs, but that has to be once the agreement has finished and once everybody understands what's happening. And then we have plenty of opportunities for international and national events where we would be able to offer attendance at conferences or industry days. And so we have a lot of, where we can offer opportunities for people to pitch and explain where they're at with their innovation, and then have an ask to people. So that might be putting you in front of funders, venture capitalists, for example. It might be about putting you in front of other scientists. And the wonderful thing about the community is that people often cite it as finding their tribe, or finding people where they feel less alone. But there's a lovely online community that's been set up beautifully, which allows people that interaction, which means that you can check on events. It means that you can see which events and which opportunities you'd like to access. There's access to all of the recordings if you need to go back over anything, and able to communicate within the group. So it's a kind of private accessed community hub, which exists as a website and also an app, so that the community find it easier to be able to connect with each other in a sort of secure, safe way. Thank you, Emily. And the educational pit stops are we make sure that there's a kind of flow in order for people to develop on their idea. We take people from early stage to late and mature stage, so there is a range, so people shouldn't feel put off by because sometimes you can find some people, and when you hear later from some of these clinical entrepreneurs, they're just so extraordinary and so amazing that it makes you feel like it's maybe difficult to get there. But we have a lot of people who are early stage who do extraordinarily well, and we understand that you might start with an idea, and that idea might develop, or you might pivot. So we want everybody to feel included in that, and we want from a wide range of NHS staff, everybody is included. Everybody is equally needing to start from the same position, and the pit stops are there to build on that knowledge. And you can see there it goes from thinking about your concept and ideas, and how you will go about that, and how you will reach customers, and who's going to pay for it. Harry is here, and you'll hear from Harry later. He's also one of the clinical leads, and does a lot of the business planning. So we're very fortunate to have, that's where people might need additional one-to-one business planning, where they get specific advice about where their project needs to go next. And it's possible then to get that type of support. And you'll hear from Harry about what he's managed to achieve over his time, which is always extraordinary. Thank you, Emily. Is there another slide on that? So these are all of the things that we're able to offer people. And one of the wonderful collaborations that we've also had recently has been with the BMJ. We wanted to make sure that we developed that research ability for people to have those connections with editors, because we understand that you need to validate and do clinical trials. And so we feel like that, and then we have several partnerships across different industry partners as well. and there's a huge range of things that we support, as you can see, from applications to expert clinics. And we do additional webinars particularly when there's a need. So as AI became more popular, for example, we then expanded and took more AI webinars on board. Thanks, Emily. And mentoring, we're incredibly lucky. The minimum is that you meet your mentor 4 times a year, but it often ends up being more than that. It's just that we appreciate that people maybe are needing some flexibility, and there's the online community hub has a matching platform, and so you can choose who works well for you, and you can also have an introduction to people and then make a decision later. And all of that will become clear. We usually let you get your feet under the table first, and then introduce you to mentors when you know what you're aiming for and who you might need in the next step of your journey. Thank you, Emily. And so we're just about to start running the next cycle of the programme, where we open it up in October to applications. People then hear in sort of February time, sometimes the end of January, about the who's been successful, and then we start in March. There's usually a very lovely annual event where we celebrate the clinical entrepreneurs who are leaving and welcome the new clinical entrepreneurs, and it's usually a wonderful event to start meeting people and start the networking process. And then we continue to run through the education days, trying to get you as much opportunities as possible. Thank you, Emily. And this is just a non-exhaustive list of the type of innovations that people have come up with so far. So some of them are very device orientated. We have a lot in the digital health space, as you can imagine, and everything from how people are addressing health inequalities to how people take their medicines to drone delivery. So it can be as wide as you want it to be. So again, you can be creative, and you don't need to worry about whether your innovation might not fit in a box, because we have lots of people who are thinking outside the box. Thank you. So just to show you that the type of statistics that we have from the end of the years is that we've got a huge number of patients that are already impacted by the innovations, and that comes from research and piloting. So there's so many patients that have already benefited from the amount of innovations that have been adopted. And the amount of clinical entrepreneurs, so these are the stats between years 1 to 7, and of course we're going through cohort 8. So there's about 1,200 altogether, alumni and the current cohort, who are active and always welcome in the network. And it means that we have 500 startups have been created, which is pretty extraordinary on the amount of successes. And we spoke before about the amount of funding that's been raised. All of the clinical days, all of the pit stops or education days are CPD accredited and can count towards people's continuing professional development. We're particularly pleased about the people who've been retained within the NHS and the number of jobs that are created through the innovations. Thank you, Emily. And we have a huge number of partnerships, which grows more and more, but these are people who provide us with additional industry days. So for example, next week there is a day with IBM, and all of those partnerships mean additional opportunities, not just from learning, but also sometimes people are looking for innovations that they would like to work with. So we're incredibly fortunate to have the most extraordinary partnerships, and quite a few partnerships now developing outside of the UK too. We have lots of prep sessions, so you can have a look at the website and see how to fill out your application form. The team are wonderful, and they will support you if you're having trouble or you just need to speak it through with someone. So you can reach out to the team. And that's, yes, is that the last one, Emily, or we got perfect? So if the this is the way to understand a little bit more about the programme. And I'm thrilled to bits to hand over to our Scottish colleagues to take the conversation forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Tamsin. That was a really interesting and exciting introduction. My name is Sanna Rimpyläinen. I'm Head of Research and Skills at the Digital Health and Care Innovation Centre, who also chairs the Scottish Coordination Group. And I'm going to try and share some slides. There's only 3 of them, so hopefully this will work. Can you see this?
Yeah, that's all good.
Yeah, okay. I'm not familiar with Zoom, so it's somehow moved to a different screen on my computer. But anyway, these are the 5 organizations that make up the Scottish Coordination Group. So in addition to DHI, we have Scottish Enterprise, Chief Scientist Office at the Scottish Government, NHS Education for Scotland, and Inniscot Health. And our job basically is to offer sort of Scottish flavour to the main curriculum for the entrepreneurs who are based here in Scotland. And our job is to support the main programme by extending the curriculum just so that the Scottish context becomes more familiar. The main programme is very, should I say, England-centric or England-based, obviously, because it is provided and mainly based down there, and Scotland has slightly different systems and processes and slightly different regulatory environment, as well as different funding opportunities available to the Scottish-based entrepreneurs. So this is where we can help to bring in the Scottish landscape to life, so to speak, and help people find the right type of information and networks and contacts that they need in the local context. There are my colleagues will be talking about these in more detail next, but what we basically do is we organize series of online and face-to-face events around the year where we bring together the Scottish cohort. Often we bring them together with NHS Innovation Fellows, which is another kind of strand of innovation activity here in Scotland. We share information about different relevant information through the mailing list or through the NHS, the Clinical Entrepreneur Hub. And we continue to work to investigate best ways to engage with the Scottish cohort and how best to help you guys. This is a kind of ongoing learning process for all of us as well. We also evaluate the Scottish cohort, their progress, and investigate future funding opportunities. I will stop here and I will let the next person come in, and I'm not entirely sure who that will be. So I don't know if Polly or Emily might give me a hand here. Whether maybe Abby would like to go first because she's needing to go. So
Yes, that's the agenda, if that's okay, Abby.
yeah.
So I can just unmute myself. I don't have any slides, so you're just going to have to look at me, I think. I'm not sure if I'm showing up or not.
You are.
Yeah, I am. I'm here. Okay, woohoo. So everyone, I am I'm Sanna's colleague at the Digital Health and Care Innovation Centre, or DHI for short. And my role is that I lead on industry engagement, and that includes pre-commercial there. And just to give you a very quick flavour of my background and what sort of recommends me to the role that I find myself in, I've worked across the triple helix. So I've had time, I worked in industry for a while. I worked back in the mists of time in academic research myself, and then more recently in economic development. And that role in economic development included a substantive part in supporting early stage companies. So I worked quite specifically with spin-outs from universities across Scotland. And also as part of that time, or when I was at Scottish Enterprise, I myself participated in an entrepreneurship programme. So I do have some experience of what it's like to be on the other side of the developing an entrepreneurial opportunity. And I know firsthand how important it is to have that cohort that you're working with and within. So I know that it's been mentioned several times by previous speakers about on tonight's event, but I suppose I can't really stress how important it is. I have found it to be to people engaged in entrepreneurial endeavour to be around other people that are going through similar things as they are. It's just massively helpful to feel part of a cohort. And that is very much one of the reasons why we are trying to deliver a bit more wraparound support to our further flung people within the SET programme up here in Scotland. So from a DHI perspective, some of the stuff that we can bring to the table is some of my colleagues have been doing digital health innovation for 10 years now. So there's a lot of learning and experience and insights that we can bring to the table. Our early stage support is much more likely to be delivered through one-to-many activities. So like events and workshops and the online resources that we have. The substance of these types of events and activities in large part draw down on our core expertise in design innovation. So we have a lot of experience in helping innovators gain a full understanding of their customer needs. So again, this is something that's been raised already. It's about understanding the needs, not just of your end users, but all the people involved right the way along that clinical or social care pathway, including the patients and the public themselves. We tend to focus our activity around some key areas where we've got kind of more resource. So those areas include mental health, healthy aging, some chronic conditions like diabetes, and more recently, women's health. And we can connect you to some clusters and communities that are highly active and include people from right across the innovation spectrum. We also are really conscious about the complexity of the ecosystem, so we work quite closely with partners, as evidenced by this call, to develop aligned approaches and clearer communications. And I think I'm going to stop there because I've probably talked long enough.
Thank you. I think it was Susan who was going to go next. Thank you.
Thanks, Tamsin, and thanks, Abby. So I won't share slides with you this evening because I know we're quite short for time. My name's Sue Donaldson and I am a principal educator in NHS Education for Scotland, NHS as it's known for short within the ecosystem. So NHS is a National Health Board. And it is the statutory education, training, workforce development, data and technology provider for health and social care across Scotland. And if you can say that quickly. So we provide the kind of underpinning support for entrepreneurs in terms of, I suppose, a window into the NHS. So NHS Scotland works differently from NHS England or Wales, and there are some specific nuances that that we can help and support entrepreneurs to navigate through the system. And it's really interesting to be working with partner organisations, DHI, Innoscot, the Scottish Government Chief Scientist Office, and Scottish Enterprise. Because we all bring something different to the table, and I think different insights and understandings. So you know, NHS works across all of the NHS job families. It was interesting, Polly said at the beginning that initially the Entrepreneurs Programme started up for medicine, but NHS promotes and supports the development across all of the NHS families. So I think in terms of anyone who's out there who has an idea and an innovation could find something within our playbook, I guess, in terms of support and enablement. And I'll stop there because I know we are tight for time. And I'll share our slides afterwards.
Perfect. Thank you. So important. Thank you. Gillian, are you good to go next?
I am. Hi
Thank
everyone. I'm Gillian Henderson and I am Head of Project Management with InnoScot Health. Some of you who have been around for a while longer may know us as Scottish Health Innovations. We have been working with the NHS for 20 years on the support of development and commercialisation of ideas from NHS Scotland. We're funded by the Chief Scientist Office and we work mainly at sort of early stage ideation phase, and our work really centres around the support of that to try and get to a commercial endpoint. So we work right across the NHS in Scotland. As Sue said, all job families are included, just an NHS Scotland contract is required. And we can support with evaluation of ideas, so market assessment, health economics, intellectual property protection, assessing the value in the idea. We're also ISO 13485 certified, so can advise on that regulatory pathway, gaining your UK CE mark as well. We support funding applications and can, bring together collaborations for these sort of wider programs. We can help with prototyping, and we have we've spun out in the past as well, and also licensed to commercial partners. So from our point of view, it's great to be part of the programme because it brings together, I mean, NHS England's no different to NHS Scotland. It's quite a cluttered landscape. There's lots of partners involved, and sometimes it can be quite difficult just actually even knowing where to go for support. So it's really good that the coordination group brings together lots of different support that's available. So if you've got any questions about eligibility for our application, whether or not you should apply in Scotland, we're always more than happy to have a wee chat about that. I think Sean's on the call as well. He's going to speak for CSO, so I'll just hand over to you, Sean.
Thank you very much. Similarly, I'm not very familiar with Zoom, so hopefully this will work. So I should be sharing my screen now. Is that showing for everyone?
Maybe in a wee minute. It looks as though it's trying.
Well, that's half the battle. Okay, I'll talk about the slide. I'll stop sharing and I'll just change. So my name's Sean Anderson and I'm a Senior Policy and Programme Manager within the Chief Scientist Office, working in the Innovation Team. The CSO Innovation Team sits in the Scottish Government's Health and Social Care Department and plays a crucial role in guiding and coordinating innovation activities throughout NHS Scotland. Ultimately, the primary goal is to develop innovative solutions that address the real needs of patients and the NHS, aiming to improve health and social care whilst fostering economic growth. The central aspect of our work is the CSO Regional Innovation Hubs, which we fund and oversee, and the hubs are essential to the innovation landscape in Scotland. Covering all 14 territorial NHS boards, they are the North of Scotland Innovation Hub, the West of Scotland Innovation Hub, and Health Innovation South East Scotland. And if I had my slides, I had a nice map which shown that, but I'll pop that in the chat just to clarify what areas are covered by which. But if you're not already engaged with the innovation hubs within your local board, I strongly would recommend you reaching out and having the initial contact with them, especially if you're interested in the entrepreneur stage. They're designed purposely to help people and to, along with our partners, to sort of facilitate the initial steps in entrepreneurism. But ultimately, the hubs act as catalysts for innovation by facilitating collaboration between the NHS, academia and industry, and support fostering these partnerships. So with that, we ensure that new technologies, products and services are not only relevant to the NHS, but also have the potential for broader adoption, both nationally and internationally. But I know we're running out of time, so I'll not labour on the point, and I'll hand back to Tamsin.
It's incredibly impressive. What's on offer and so supportive, and we are going to hand over to hear from entrepreneurs who have innovated within Scotland, who have made a huge difference to patient care and the landscape generally, and are a very important part of the network. And I think it's Dr. Debbie Wake who we're fortunate enough to hear from first. Debbie, I think.
Hi there. Yep. Can you hear me, Tamsin?
Yes,
Great.
lovely. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. You can see me as well. Great. I was going to quickly just share a few slides, if that's okay. Give me 1 second. So yeah, lovely to see you all this evening. And I think hopefully what I'm going to talk about actually references a number of the organisations you've just heard from. So hopefully it's a kind of real live example of making use of some of what is available in Scotland. And I think that's one thing we have done hopefully fairly well, is actually make use of every sort of opportunity that's available to us. Hopefully my slides, can you see those now? Yeah, perfect. Great. So, so yeah, I'm Debbie Wake. I'm a consultant diabetologist by background. I still do the occasional clinic in Lothian at Leith and up at the Western General Hospital, and have an academic role with Edinburgh University, where I'm a clinical reader within the Usher Institute in the Centre for Medical Informatics. But I spend a lot of my time now as the CEO and co-founder of MyWay Digital Health. So this is a company we spun out of Dundee University about 7.5 years ago now. And very briefly, what our product does is its main focus is around diabetes, and we have patient-facing elements and we have clinician-facing elements. The MyWay Diabetes side of things, as I'll show you in a minute, came out of a national innovation in Scotland, and that contains educational information for people with diabetes. It allows them to access their NHS record and also link up remote monitoring devices and data. And then we've also developed systems for clinicians which support clinician disease management in terms of decision support, which is built in sort of predictive analytics to support sort of medication and treatment choices that are personalised to people, to the individuals. It supports around diagnostic decision making, also at population level, we can also use the system to find cohorts of people who are at high risk. We can use it to track KPIs. We can use it to triage people, and that's really about that sort of wide population management side of things. So our story is essentially, I've been working on informatics systems, IT for diabetes for over 20 years now. And in Scotland, we are lucky to have a sort of single unified electronic health record for diabetes management called Sky Diabetes, and a patient portal called My Diabetes MyWay, which, as I say, I got involved with about 20 years ago and supported the development of that in my sort of NHS and academic roles. That's become a really important exemplar for Scotland in terms of how we can manage chronic disease at scale using data primarily that is linked from pretty much every point across the care system, from primary care, secondary care, hospital data, ambulance data, pharmacy data, national screening data, all coming into one unified platform that both patients and clinicians can manage. And within Scotland, we now have over 80,000 people who use that platform to access their electronic health record online. And we've got over 1 million website users who use educational information. So we spun the company out in 2017 because there was a huge demand really outside Scotland for this platform. It was showing amazing benefits in terms of joining up care and delivering good clinical outcomes. We went back to Dundee University, where a lot of the IP had been developed. And through, at that time I was working at Dundee University with my co-founder, Scott Cunningham, who's from a technical background, and we got permission to spin the company out. So since then, we started deploying across NHS England. We now run the national type 1 diabetes platform for NHS England, which provides education for the whole country in England for everyone with type 1 diabetes. And we've got large regional platforms in places like North West London, North East London, Somerset, Greater Manchester, and a few other smaller areas. And in those areas, we've linked into GP practice data, predominantly other health information exchange data, and are providing similar services. We've since obviously expanded internationally, and we're now delivering contracts in places like Saudi Arabia and Malaysia. In terms of the product expansion, we started with My Diabetes MyWay, which was essentially our patient app, but we've also expanded beyond diabetes now. So we're delivering services for preventing diabetes, for pre-diabetes populations, also for people with cardiovascular disease and cardiovascular risk factors like hypertension and weight management. So we're continuing that kind of chronic disease expansion, but using the same premise of bringing in data both from remote monitoring devices, electronic health record data, and then contextualizing that with algorithms, increasingly AI, predictive analytics and things on top of it to give tools that are useful for both patients, clinicians and the wider healthcare management system or administrators, whoever they might be. So we have obviously I joined the Clinical Entrepreneurship Programme a few years ago, and that has been really incredibly valuable for us to be part of that ecosystem. I officially joined a few years ago, but I think I was a bit of a hanger-on in the earlier stages when Scotland wasn't properly joined into the programme, and it was really more focusing around NHS England, and then I kind of officially came back to the programme after that. But what I thought was probably more useful for tonight is, rather than me telling you lots about my innovation, is to kind of point you in the direction of things that helped us kind of get there in terms of our scaling. And particularly a number of these are specific for Scotland. I think we're really lucky in Scotland in that we can access UK-wide innovations and accelerators, but we can also access the stuff within Scotland. So we kind of get double benefits really, and we've made really good use of that. And I've just pointed out a few things here. First of all, in terms of awards and accelerators, and you can see here the National Clinical Entrepreneurship Programme, but prior to that, we were also on a number of other programmes, the London Digital Health Accelerator Programme, the NHS Innovation Accelerator Programme, which is quite competitive. You have to have quite a high level of evidence base for your product to get onto this programme, and this was hugely important for us, understanding and starting to link in with important sort of networks and things to scale across NHS England. Unlocking Ambition is a programme that's specifically set up by Scottish Enterprise that's been running a number of cohorts. It's not specifically for healthcare, it's for any businesses, but that was brilliant in terms of meeting up with other people from other businesses, other walks of life, all through going through the same challenges of scaling a business. I was also put onto a National Women in Innovation Award programme. There was 9 of us in that year. And again, that took us through, again, a number of kind of business development tools. And then the University of Edinburgh has a AI accelerator programme as part of their data-driven innovation. And again, we were able to do that. Now, this is only for technologies that have an AI component to them. So that may or may not be relevant, but that continues to run. And I've not gone through everything here, but you can see here some of the other things. There's, at the moment, some of you may be aware of Codebase have developed this tech scaler programme. And again, that's a really good sort of networking opportunity, and Codebase is based across a number of different sites in Scotland, so it's really worth them finding out more about. The other things in terms of funding, I thought just to sort of flag, again, we've been really lucky and well supported with a number of funding streams. Innovate UK have definitely been our friends over the year, and the good thing about Innovate UK is it's very focused on kind of commercial, so it's very friendly in terms of the funding being given in a sort of undiluted way, not restricting your IP, and supporting around commercial growth and things, but also allows you to pair up with NHS and academic partners to basically deliver that. So that's been a really flexible form of funding. Now, right at the start here, you'll see DHI, so Department of Health and the Digital Health Institute, which you've heard from, gave us some really early funding. This was before we spun out. This is when we were still University of Dundee and trying to spin out a company. And there was a number of sort of innovation sort of support that came from that, and that helped us spin the company out. And then as we went through, as I say, there's been some other schemes. I'll just point out a few things like Scottish Edge, which is again a broad entrepreneurship programme, but again they give out quite significant funding every year that's there for you to use and accelerate the business. Innovate UK have helped us along the way with things like SBRI awards. So our initial SBRI award basically allowed us to deploy the system outside Scotland in Somerset, and that came in 2 tranches, which was a sort of 100k and then an 800k tranche. We did a Digital Catalyst Award that allowed us to develop a lot of our predictive analytics and AI machine learning work. There was testbed funding, which allowed us to roll out across Greater Manchester. More smaller sort of SBRI funding for bits of bits of functionality, and then things like the NIH AI award. So again, because we have an AI component to what we're doing, what this allowed us to do was take our device from being a Class 1 CE mark device to a Class 2 CE mark device and do all our safety and usability testing. And we've still got about 6 months left of that award. It has slightly overrun, but that has been hugely helpful in funding a lot of what can be quite expensive sort of regulatory costs and testing costs and things when you're trying to deploy AI-driven functionality within the system. More recently, we got another Precision Medicine Award from Innovate UK. So this is about automating processes, and we're also doing some work in Saudi Arabia with this. And the University of Manchester won a big award to evaluate our system, which we've some small funding on that, but it's mainly been done independently through an independent academic institution. And this will be a multi-centre big cohort study to get more evidence base behind our product. So not all this funding came to us. The thing with this funding is, we bring it in, but then we distribute it out to partners like NHS partners, academic partners. We retain some of it within the business, and then we're also paying sort of consultancy and things. But it's hugely helped us, move through our pathway. We're now, I'd say, we were very reliant on grant income initially, but we're now very much only about a quarter of our sort of yearly income comes through grants. The rest of it comes through contracts, and we're very lucky that we've now got a number of sort of contracts across NHS England predominantly, and we're sort of moving forward with the business. So we've got about 32 people, I think, employed within the business in terms of core employees, yeah, it continues to be a lot of hard work. I've showed you all the really nice stuff, but actually, what I've not shown you is all the sort of tears and toil along the way. But I'm happy to take questions about that, and I'll hand you back.
Thank you, Debbie. What you have achieved is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, it is absolutely amazing. And just to reassure everybody people who are on the call that, you know, I love the fact that the arrow started low and went high, because it starts as a small thing. You don't expect to get to Saudi Arabia. You do. Yes.
No, absolutely. There was two of us started the business. We had no money. We were scrabbling around, and we got that first, I think it was, 20k grant or something that we got was just phenomenal. And, we were suddenly able to employ somebody to help us. And it is just step by step by step. And we couldn't have predicted where we are today. It starts with small things, but it's just really to say there's so much support out there for you. And I think what we've done well is we've just gone out and we've used the networks, and we've used, all the organisations you've heard about today, using the funding streams. It's out there to get. So, do make use of all that, even if you just want to do small projects and innovate within your NHS. Maybe you don't want to scale a business, doesn't really matter, but it's understanding these networks and speaking to people is the best thing you can do in terms of getting the right support for what you're doing, whatever stage you are at.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Thank you. And we've got the Q&A coming up later, so I'll probably move on now to Hasib. But it's such an extraordinary example of somebody being able to start small, but then to be able to do so much support, and then outside Scotland as well. Hasib, are you here? I think I saw your name. Are you okay?
Yes, I am. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you. Have you got slides to share?
I have one single slide, and I'm going to just talk on the back of that. So
Brilliant.
I will just share my screen.
Thank you. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay. So Debbie set a very high bar, and I'm a lot earlier in my journey, but I think that's important to know about the early stages for people who are maybe joining or thinking of joining with an idea as well. So I am happy to talk more about that and where I'm at just now. So I'm Hasib. I'm a doctor by background, worked in the NHS for 5 years. And MedSnap is my innovation. It's a startup. It's a gamified medical education platform to help medical students learn medicine and pass their medical school exams. So this idea came on the back of a clinical teaching fellow role that I did, where I was teaching medical students from 3 different medical schools in the UK in the hospital that I was at. And that was on the back end of COVID. And that's where I saw that there was a huge gap in the market, basically, that medical students were learning using the same resources pretty much that I was using about 10 years ago. And I'd always been passionate about education, especially medical education. And essentially that's where the idea stemmed from. But as we know, ideas are not $1 million ideas, but they don't actually work unless you do something about them. So like many people, I sat on the idea for a long time. And then it was actually only recently, earlier this year, and last year when I joined the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Programme, which really helped me validate the idea, get started. Being a doctor with very little business experience, it's very hard actually taking that first step. And that's where I think the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Programme really helped me. So where am I at just now? So we've validated the idea, we've built the platform, we're in a closed beta. So we've got our first cohort of users, and it's invite only at the moment. So we're getting feedback from our users, and that's really helpful. And essentially the way the platform works is that you're joining medical education with gamification. So the general way that a doctor works, say in the emergency department, is that they will examine the patient, they'll investigate the patient, come up with their diagnosis, and then go on to manage and treat their patient. And there we've got a screenshot there, and that's one of the screenshots from the platform. So essentially we're tying up with gamification, where you've got game currency. So you're actually buying your investigations and your treatments using your game currency. You've got different levels, ranks, you've got experience, and you're competing against your classmates essentially to work up the leaderboard and show off all of your fancy inventory and your game stats and your badges, etc. So I'm actually sitting in Harvard Business School at the moment. I'm on a US trip. As basically, I have went full time. I've taken the plunge, and it's not for everyone, but I have went full time from about 4 months ago. I left my NHS job, and we're tying up a pre-seed round, hopefully over the next few months, and raise some funding. So I'll be pitching in San Francisco in a few days, and I've got a couple of meetings there, sitting in Boston at the moment. So the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Programme can lead to some interesting situations. And I guess I can talk a bit more about my experience with the programme as well. So I came into the programme with the idea for MedSnap, and I part validated it, but I hadn't spoken to maybe as many medical students, which Tony was quite clear in telling me during that time. And then the pit stops, not coming from much of a business background, really helped me essentially learn what I needed to do in, say, marketing and actually setting up a company, setting up a website, the basic stuff, which being non-technical, you don't really know about. And actually, I think the most important thing was taking action, having that environment where you are with like-minded people, some of them who are much ahead of you and very inspirational, and also hearing from people who've went down that journey for many years ahead and seeing how they actually started their journey as well. And I think that's important to hear, is Debbie's really doing well. And like she said, the early days aren't like that. The early days are very scrappy. They're very difficult. You're worried about your finances. You're worried about getting first users, people paying for the product, etc. And it's useful to just talk to people who have went through that and really know that you are not the only person who's actually going through that, and there's other people who feel that way as well. So I think that's most of what I wanted to talk about.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Well, it was lovely to hear about where you've got with it, and amazing that you've got to that point where you're sitting in Harvard Business School. So
Yes.
Extraordinary. And actually, while there are several people that get to the point where they can go all in with their innovation, the bit where you are still within your NHS job and developing your innovation, where you are, as you're saying, trying to hold it together with the finances.
Yeah.
So the data is that it helps you to stay within a job like your NHS job, and it keeps the innovation alive for longer until you get to that point where you're able to really have to commit to it all. So
yeah,
you've done well.
I should mention as well, Debbie mentioned there's lots of organisations in the Scottish ecosystem especially. So we've also won Scottish Edge funding and one or two other grants, which has really helped. And we're also part of TechScaler and account managed by Scottish Enterprise as well. So it's about knowing what's out there, which is sometimes hard, and knowing what everyone does because everyone's very interconnected. And I guess speaking to people in the ecosystem and just having people point you in the right direction of where to get support, because that support's definitely out there. And NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Programme is perfect for doing that.
Thank you. That's so helpful for people just to hear about that, and that you're at this point in your journey. Thank you. And amazing to have achieved so much. Extraordinary. And just to try to keep to time, Harry, it's lovely to have Harry. Harry has actually been on the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme. He was in the first cohort. And as happens with a lot of the clinical entrepreneurs, sometimes because of their huge leadership and the experience that they get in industry, then Harry has actually ended up supporting, being a mentor to some clinical entrepreneurs, and also doing business planning sessions with others. And so I found Harry very important on my own innovation journey, because I used to be on the programme myself too several years ago. Harry, I'll leave it up to you. Have you got slides?
I do indeed. Bear with me, and if I can make Zoom work. There we go. Is that sharing? Yes, perfect. So yeah, thanks so much, Camden. So yeah, I'm Harry. Day job is helping to run a company called AirLogic, which is the UK's largest specialist health tech consultancy. And then yeah, part-time supporting into business and commercial lead of the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Programme. You'll tell by my accent, I'm not Scottish. I was born in Edinburgh, so maybe I can be an honorary Scot for the night if you'll have me. But yeah, I was just going to share quickly a little bit about my journey, few experiences and reflections of being on the programme. And I'll try and maybe whiz through the slides because as we said, I think we're running a little short on time, but let's see how we go. I started off my professional life as a doctor, not really knowing where I wanted to go. Ended up in surgery, but then found myself being drawn more into kind of quality improvement stuff using technology. And this was a problem that really I wanted to solve. It blew my mind that over 15% of the surgical patients have complications after their surgery. So I started to think, how can we solve this problem? And so my big idea was to turn rehab into prehab. I would take rehab exercises and teach them preoperatively. So this is way back in, back in black and white in 2012 to 2013. But rehab was a big thing, but I thought it was pretty cool. Don't laugh at my cobbled together website that I put together to try and share some exercises with patients. But yeah, put this together, and then we started testing it on patients who were having lobectomy for lung cancer, and we had some really good results. So we had almost a 50% reduction in antibiotic prescription post-op, so half the amount of chest infections really. So I thought that was amazing, and if I could do that with £200 and no technical skills whatsoever, what else can we do with technology? So I wanted to maybe go part-time, maybe do something a bit different with my career, and to explore this and to try and run it as a business alongside things. But unfortunately, the hospital and the deanery at the time had some other ideas, and they told me you have to choose between being a surgeon or being an entrepreneur. Oh, and by the way, we own all the IP. So both the hospital and the deanery thought they had 100%. So they had 200% and I had nothing. Which you can imagine what my response was. Decided I finish out my core surgical training, go out and into the big bad world of digital health and try and make my way. Not sure my mum and my wife have forgiven me yet, but maybe they will one day. But then realized that I didn't know the first thing about running a business or building a product or any of those things. But I was fortunate enough to meet Tony Young the day after actually I'd left full-time training, and he'd just announced that the year after they were going to start the first year of the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme. And I ended up going across to the States with Tony, and he was sitting down with a senior leader from one of the world's biggest tech companies, and they were telling him, we're the moonshot company. We are looking for that one Luke Skywalker who's going to go and change the world. And Tony's response was, well, that's fine. You can have your Luke Skywalker, but Luke Skywalker is nothing without a mentor. And he needs some backup and some support and some friends around him. And actually, what I'm trying to do with the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme is not just have one Luke Skywalker, but have an army of Luke Skywalkers. And that's how we're going to shift the dial. That's how we're going to deliver that transformational change in healthcare. And for me, I wanted a piece of that. I wanted to be part of it. So fortunate enough to work with Tony and Polly and others a little bit to help out as the program's getting off the ground. And then, was appointed as one of the first clinical entrepreneurs in year one. And here I am 8 years later or something, still here. And I guess go back to my journey, left medicine, thought that I'm just going to build this company. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a unicorn. It's going to be really easy. Realized I didn't know the first thing about business. Fortunate enough to get onto the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme, and then the exposure which I got to the programme to all sorts of different businesses through the network that the programme provides was really amazing. Really allowed me to learn a lot of different skills, meet a lot of interested people, and actually understand industry so much better than I did when I was still practicing full time. The other great thing, whilst I was trying to find my way. It allowed me to retain my clinical practice for probably 3, 4, 5 years longer than I would have stayed in the NHS. I was able to stay working part-time and working in A&E. So then again through the programme, got introduced to the guys at My Health and joined them part-time as a medical advisor. Got introduced to work through one of the mentors on the programme, actually worked with him to co-found the company. There's a bigger story there, which I probably don't have time to go into now. Accidentally may have ended up on the front page of 6 of the 10 biggest newspapers in the country, and went through, I guess, some tough times. Not that anything bad has happened, but maybe a story for another time when I've got more, when I do my founded story, if you're lucky enough to be on the programme. But I'd like to leave that and focus more of my attention back on My Health and tell you a little bit about them. So they digital therapeutics manufacturer, primarily in the respiratory space, also some work in diabetes, heart disease, and others. And I worked with a bunch of NHS organisations to help deploy my COPD into clinical practice. And that taught me a lot, right? How to look at a care pathway, not just be a single point solution, but actually embed a digital product within a care pathway so that it becomes bread and butter for clinicians to use it. We did some really cool stuff, such as designing and implementing a hybrid pulmonary rehab program. So it's not an either or. You can go through your standard pulmonary rehab service, get your assessment done, and either do some rehab on the app and some in face-to-face, all on the app, but with some wraparound support, or your normal face-to-face service. And through that, that's how we managed to get really good uptake and growth of our products. And also got to build my rehab idea, brought that to life. So that was really exciting. MyOp, it's called. And idea is it supports patients holistically from the decision to operate through to their full recovery, using a combination of exercises, breathing exercises, mindfulness techniques, and other ways to reduce anxiety, as well as a full nutritional program to help people optimize themselves before surgery. So brought that to market. That's now in use in several centres across the NHS. But then ready for my new challenge. So left My Health and joined Logic, which is don't have too much time, so I'll mention them quickly. So as I said, we're health technology consultancy, and then we also have a low-code platform for rapidly prototyping and then delivering healthcare solutions. On the consultancy side, we work primarily with NHS England at the centre, so we build a lot of the infrastructure on which frontline services run, so things like electronic prescribing, the spine system, summary care records, the vaccination service, big bits of NHS 111. And we can provide strategic advice on how to design and build those systems, but we've also got a full DevOps team as well, so we could do full stack development. So we can't just tell you what you should do, we'll also be the partner in helping build it. From the lessons we've learned at a national level, and as well as working with trusts like these teaching hospitals, we spun that out into a low-code platform. May be relevant for any innovators who's looking for a partner, and you want to be able to rapidly put together a solution which is lower cost because we don't start from scratch. We kind of couple together all the various different modules that we've already built. And I suppose what I like about them, and maybe to finish off with this as well, I've heard find your tribe quite a few times. One, Clinical Entrepreneur Programme is a great tribe. Work-wise, I feel like I found my tribe in AirLogic, and that's because they're ethically driven. They exclusively do tech for good work, so they only do work where they see a societal benefit. They're good for our staff, so we're an employee-owned business, like the John Lewis of digital healthcare consultancy, that's the thing. Yeah, employee-owned. And then we are a limited company, so we do make to look profits, but this is the running order of how we assess whether we take on an opportunity. And if it doesn't meet the first two, we don't do it. And we do about between 10 and 20 pro bono or at cost projects a year, just because we think it's the right thing to do. And that's something which I love. and they're really passionate about. And to wrap up, I'll just leave you with this quote, because I think Debbie mentioned it. I think Dave mentioned it as well. Entrepreneurship is hard, long, and you need that kind of support around you. Don't give up. So this quote from Jacob Rees is one of my favorites. When nothing seems to help, I go look at a stone cutter hammering away at his rock perhaps 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it. But 101st blow will split in two, and it was not that blow that did it, but all that had gone before. To keep hammering away at that rock, get the right support around you, like the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme, and that's how you crack it. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
That was so lovely, Harry, and such a good example as well of really not that long ago where organisations were just like, well, if you're going to do innovation or entrepreneurship, then we don't know what to do with it. We'll either take all of it or you're out. And actually, so helpful that Polly and Tony and yourself started that programme to support innovations, and now it's starting to change the culture. And actually, not all innovations, I mean, we had hugely successful people presenting here, but not all innovations will be able to get to the next stage. But we still see, even if that particular innovation doesn't work, we still see people succeeding, either taking on new leadership roles, changing their culture within the place that they're working, or sometimes pivoting or joining something similar to their own. So it's a range of successes that we see, and it's really lovely. And I'm sorry that I'm running behind, but it's so lovely to be able to open it up to people who are here. Thank you for coming and giving up your evening. And we would absolutely love it if you've got a question for any of the remarkable people we've heard from tonight, or if you want to explain about something that you're thinking about applying with. So do feel free to either put your hand up, put something in the chat, or you're welcome to, if you do put something in the chat, you're very welcome to open up your mic and speak to everybody. It's a good opportunity. So Polly, are you okay to keep an eye on that for the moment?
Yeah, there's no hand so far.
Oh, fab. Okay, well, I'll start, but please feel oh, brilliant.
Oh, we have a hand.
Oh, fantastic. Sorry, I'm just going to need my glasses to read it. Oh, thank you. Is it Sal? How do you say your name? Is it Sal?
Hi, yes, my name is Sal, and thank you so much for this amazing opportunity and for setting up this really amazing and inspirational platform. I have a few questions if you don't mind. I'm really sorry. Tell me to shut up if I'm talking too much. So I'm Sal. I'm a renal ST8 registrar. I'm based in Glasgow, and basically I've been quite passionate about improving kidney treatments, specifically hemodialysis. And basically my vision is probably to go into medical devices and thinking about how to innovate the next generation of hemodialysis. But I'm not sure, but I'm still very much in the early stages where I'm still brainstorming, I'm speaking to professors, and I'm sort of speaking to a few family friends who are in sort of kind of that space. So it's still very early. And I wonder whether the first thing is there a stage where it's too early to apply for this for this program? Because I might have, after speaking to a couple of people, they might say, your idea is too ambitious. I think you should take stock and stop. So that's my first question, is whether it's too early. And so if you don't mind, my second question is actually to Dr. Debbie Walker specifically, actually, is because Dr. Walker, you're a clinician as well as doing this at the same time. And I just wondered how much time you had to allocate doing this work and versus clinical work, and whether when you first started, whether you had a lot more time that was dedicated into it, and then later on, as it took traction, whether you had more time for clinical work. It's just because part of me also doesn't want to give up that clinical side of things because of the road I've taken, and I still love my work, but it's just I also want to improve treatments that we have for our patients. So thank you very much, and I'm sorry for taking too much time.
No, that's what brilliant questions. That is absolutely fantastic, and I will let these guys answer them. But the too early thing, we have people who have lots of ideas, and we do say if you can to stick to one when you're applying. But we completely appreciate, and part of it is part of it is that we're interested in you as well. So when you do your application, it goes through an industry partner and it goes through someone in the NHS and then an additional person as well. So part of it is you and what you want to do and what your background is and what you're interested in. And the programme is really keen to support people who want to be in this area. It helps to focus on one idea when you're putting your application. We completely appreciate that people pivot or move forward. That happens to many people.
Yep.
Harry, you've probably seen a lot of people in this position, haven't you?
Yeah, sure. So to be critical about it, I don't think there's any stage which is too early, right? And also picking up on one thing you said, we love ambition, right? We love ambition. Don't be embarrassed about having an ambitious idea. One thing maybe for you to think about, I think what we look for in the application is to see whether you're trying to think about your idea a bit holistically and have that kind of entrepreneurial mindset, right? So sometimes there's temptation to think pretty clinically about it, but can you think more holistically about it as as a workable, viable business model, right? What's the size of the opportunity if you got it correct? What would it take? Go from your very early idea stage to the next stage. We've actually started to validate the idea. What are those steps going to be? So I think zero problem if you don't have a product yet, or if it's still at an idea stage. But what research have you done? How have you thought it through? Have you thought about your idea holistically? Those are the types of things. One tip, I think I should get shares in this book because I keep recommending it to people. I don't have any shares. There's a book, Lean Startup. It's a really good book, but it's quite theoretical book which may help you to process that early idea. It's a book called Running Lean, and that's got a really nice step-by-step way of getting your idea out on paper and then thinking about it a bit more holistically. So I think taking a bit of that approach might really help you in your application.
Thank you.
And Susan or Sana or Gillian, from the Scottish point of view, like that sort of early stage, would you have some recommendations that you would want to set at this point?
Well, if I answer from the DHI's point of view, so, well, obviously, as Abby said before she left, we support this kind of person-centered design approach. So depending on the idea, having this kind of co-design or a design session that brings together all the stakeholders that have anything to do with your design idea would be, or your entrepreneurial idea would be a really good idea, because that might open up new perspectives to what might work, what might not work, what sort of considerations to bring to play. So looking at that kind of approach might be a good idea. And they might be able to help with something like that. We organized a session on innovation thinking and participatory design earlier this year in May. So we'll hopefully organize a similar thing next year as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Gillian, did you have anything to add?
So obviously InnoScot works with early stage ideas, and we can support elements of where to position your innovation, how that might fit into a care pathway, and help you see what that might look like moving forward. Obviously, the clinical entrepreneur programme is very much a personal development programme, so it's less. I mean, obviously there has to be an idea there, but it's less so about the idea. In InnoScot's day job, we focus very much on the idea. Obviously, the person's important too, but it's very much about the idea and what the development of that will look like moving forward. So we're quite happy to support in an assessment of that if you want to reach out in advance of your application. We can help you with some resources.
Yes, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
And thank you, Gillian, for mentioning that. Yes, the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme is a workforce development programme, so it's for the NHS, and that's partly why we see success in a really broad term, because people can move into different positions. It doesn't, even if that innovation isn't successful, we see people producing work, trials, taking on different roles, safety officer roles, different roles, and becoming leaders or changing the culture. And all of that for us is also very valuable and helpful. And as Harry was saying, we're very interested in that ambition and where you want to go and what you'd like to do. And the fact that you want to stay in the NHS is perfect. And actually the reason is that if you stay in the NHS initially and you have that support and you also have those finances, then actually the innovation is more likely to be successful. So it is embedded for that reason. And actually what was your other
My second question was for Dr. Walker, just about whether how realistic it is to remain in a clinical role, and how, if so, how much clinical versus time you have to spend in the business.
Is that Dr. Wake? Sorry, yeah, love.
Dr. Walker, yeah.
Sorry, is that for me, Debbie Wake,
Yes.
or is it? Sorry, yeah, just okay.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Sorry.
I was just a bit confused. But, that's perfect. Just yeah, no, it's a really difficult balance, isn't it? And I guess I was slightly unusual in that when we were spinning the company out, I had a sort of clinical academic role, so I was already spending quite a significant amount of my time doing academic work rather than NHS work, and I'd moving at that point from Dundee University down to Edinburgh, where I was shrinking down my clinical commitment even more. So I was only doing about a clinic a week, maybe a little bit more than that, or about a day a week of clinical work. So it was probably easier for me then to kind of balance the business, and I got an arrangement with the university which allowed me a secondment to basically spend time with the company. So the company basically paid the university and bought out some of my time. I had an honorary NHS role which allowed me to kind of continue to do a little bit of clinical work, but it gave me a couple of days a week basically to work on the business, and then I've kind of slightly expanded that over time. So that's probably different to most people like yourself who are more full-time jobbing NHS clinicians, where it is going to be harder. Maintain that balance. I mean, I still do, as I say, roughly a clinic a week, maybe slightly less than that now, and that has continued to be really important for our innovation. There's no doubt that we would not have got to where we'd got to if I wasn't still a practicing clinician. And I'm up to date with all the guidelines. I have those networks amongst all the sort of other clinicians across the country, people who manage diabetes. It does make an absolutely huge difference in terms of the credibility and the way you're able to develop the product. Now, that might not be true for every product, but our product is really domain expert knowledge is really important. But so it is a hard balance, and I don't have the answer. I think I was in a lucky position in that I was able to trim down, and it'll depend on what you can realistically do. And I think that some of that is just about speaking to your NHS colleagues, your mentors, people who are managing your programme, to see what is possible. And I think as you'd heard in the old days, that it was kind of take it or leave it. I think nowadays there are perhaps more flexible thinking on this in terms of, and others, Tamsin and others might have more experience than me in terms of how you might be able to shape the next few years to allow you to buy out bits of time or do a bit of out-of-programme stuff to allow you to do this. But yeah, I think there's no right nor wrong, but it's certainly maintaining that NHS clinical foothold for me in our products has been really important.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And Debbie, that's such a great example of the way I think that it's so fixed, because we're so used to that kind of hierarchy of how you do. Actually, the fact that Debbie went and found a sort of slightly different pathway forward is also a little bit typical of that people can manage to do that, to find their way forward. I was on the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme myself before joining the team, and I maintained working as a paediatrician throughout that time. Thank you so much, Sal, for those questions. They were really helpful. And actually, the balancing bit is something that is a really good question to ask, because people find that they worry a lot about committing time, but the programme completely understands what you're balancing. And so every single pit stop is hybrid for that reason. There's catch up so that you can watch it later. And there's very little spoon feeding in that it's the autonomy is given to you, especially with contacting your mentor. But you can see from what's available that there is a huge amount of support, which has led several people to huge successes, which is amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, may I, sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand on Zoom, but just to say that there are 9 places specifically ring-fenced for Scottish candidates this year. So please do apply. This funding is available for those who are based in Scotland.
Thanks, Anna, for mentioning that. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or feeling brave enough to open up their video or mic? Just to say,
sorry, there are no more raised hands or questions in the box.
Right. Okay. Lovely. You can see that the different places where you can access support, and the team are great at understanding that people may have questions at this point and want to run things past the team about their suitability or the application process. Our website has got additional support about how to fill in the forms, and we're really welcoming to a really wide cohort. So I know that we've had a lot of clinicians speaking tonight, but the programme is actually open to every member of staff across the NHS, and we're so much richer for people being able to collaborate like that. And so, unless do any of our Scottish colleagues want to say anything about applying before we leave? Have you got a final word?
Sure, I'd be happy to just encourage anyone who is in two minds to apply and go for it. I think that's one of the things about entrepreneurship that you'll realize as you start your journey is if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to believe in you. So you have to take that first step yourself. And the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Programme is one of the best things in the NHS that we have in terms of helping you with your idea actually take that step in getting that started and actually making that a reality. So I'd encourage everyone to apply.
Thank you. That's such a lovely final word. Thank you. Debbie or Harry, have you got any final words for anyone?
Yeah, I just think, just to reiterate that, yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't hesitate. If you're remotely thinking about that this might be something, just absolutely 100% go for it. You know, you won't regret it, and it is a brilliant starting point. And we'll link you into lots of other networks. And similarly, reach out. Happy for people to reach out to me, and I'm sure there are there's many others on the programme. I mean, it is now such a huge, successful programme and network. You know, and there'll be lots of people out there who are happy to help you with your applications or answer any questions you've got. So yeah, just reach out. I say it's all about people. So yeah, find the right people in your network, and that they'll help you make it happen.
Thank you, Debbie. That's incredibly kind of you to let people to offer to support people who reach out to you. Thank you. Harry, you've been on the programme for the whole amount of time.
Yeah, right. Still lingering around like a bad smell. I don't think I've got too much to add, really. I think I echo the points there. If you're even half thinking about it, then why not apply, right? What have you got to lose? You'll meet some fantastic people. You'll have some really exposure to some really amazing opportunities, lots of inspirational stories. Genuinely, for me, being one of the best things that I've ever done, and it's given me, the program's given me so much. So I'm just happy now that I can be here and give a little bit back. But yeah, I think that's it. And maybe just pick up on Debbie's point, like, don't be a stranger. I've seen Polly, I think, has put the email address into the chat window. If you've got questions, if you want to ask us something, you know, anything that's in your mind, then just drop a line, right? And we're here to support.
Thank you, Harry. That was great.
I just had something to add. Although this is a programme free for you to attend, if you apply and you're successful, obviously there's a cost that comes along with these things. And we have a travel fund where we support entrepreneurs. So you can apply for funding for your travel if you want to attend in person. Obviously, we offer blended learning if you're unable to, and we record sessions so you can revisit them if you're working or have prior commitments, but there is support there that you can access. We also provide hotels when we're at different places as well. So if we're not in London or we're somewhere else in the country, we will block book hotels for clinical entrepreneurs to pick when they're registering for events.
Oh, thank you for mentioning that, Polly. And the reason for that is that people get so much out of attending in person, and the networking and the sort of informal conversations people find very valuable. And also to connect with, we often have people who pop in. We had an event last night and people from NHS England popped in, and we have mentors who come, and actually the speakers who we're very, very fortunate to have are then available for you to speak to. So it's so wonderful for people to come in person. We try to facilitate it wherever we can. I appreciate
and we'll be coming to Scotland next year as well. So we'll be local, well, maybe local to some of you.
And so we try to visit. So we have the pit stops often in London because that's the most central point for most people to get to, but at different points around the country. And it's always absolutely wonderful to be able to visit either Scotland or Ireland. We've got some wonderful partnerships, and so everybody is encouraged to go to all of those. Thank you so much for sticking with us tonight after a busy day, no doubt. And we are so proud to have this wonderful partnership with our Scottish colleagues, and to be able to understand and learn from each other. And we, as Sanna said, there are 9 places, and we would be beyond delighted to support you to apply. So again, thank you for attending tonight, and thank you to all of our speakers for giving up your time.